Welcome to Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Plastic. You know, Tri-5 Chevrolets, those 55, 56, and 57s are some of the most iconic cars Detroit ever built, and there are tens of thousands of them still on the road today. If you happen to be driving one with stock drum brakes on it, you know the thing stops like a cruise ship. Thankfully, the folks at H&H Classic Parts have come up with a disc brake conversion. I am here with Trey from H&H Classic Parts, and man, this is a bolt-on kit that's really going to make your driving experience a lot better in a Tri-5 Chevy.
That's right, Brian. This is about as easy a kit as you can come across. The bracket itself is specifically engineered for 55, all Tri-5 cars. Bolts on, uses all factory holes. You don't have to modify anything. Comes with hardware to do that.
Man, both hardware, pre-bent brake lines, a power booster, and a dual reservoir master cylinder. To me, the genius of the system here is obviously the caliper and the rotor, and you know, you guys did your research and you got two components that are going to be very easy to find if anybody ever needs replacements.
That's right. The rotor is early 70s A-body, so again, available for years. You can pick it up in any local parts store. Caliper and pads are early 80s, late 70s G-body. So again, parts store,
they're on the shelf,
for years.
Man. And you know, again, the brains of the system here is a proportioning valve. Now, this is a really nice, you know, self-adjusting proportioning valve where you're not going to be under there turning knobs, trying to get your brakes balanced front to back. It's done for you.
That's right. It's a GM-based proportioning valve. Very similar technology to what GM used in the 70s. So again, it's done. You don't have to adjust anything.
You know, you guys are experts in this field. How much of a difference does it make to be able to drive this thing with front disc brakes?
It's considerable. I mean, you will notice it immediately just on your first drive.
You're cruising down the road 75, 80 mile an hour, and you land on drum brakes. They're going to start fading almost immediately. So the discs are really going to make a nice, much more confident stop on a highway situation.
Oh yeah, especially you get the drum brakes wet. Again, you're cruising 75 down. You're out on that cross-country cruise. Again, that fade goes really quick. With disc brakes, you don't run into that.
So as cool as this stuff looks on the table, we really want to see it go on the car. John Gardner is on the other side of the shop with a gorgeous 57 Chevrolet that's getting the full treatment.
Great.
Well, I'm here with Herman from H&H Classic Parts. Herman, it never fails. They let the older guys, or should I say more mature guys, come over here and do the live work, actually install everything. I guess they want it done right?
I suppose, yeah.
Now, we took this off. Now, this is really interesting to me, Herman, because number one, it's antiquated, but number two, this is a single channel system, and what that means is you got one line coming out feeding all the wheels. You get a hole, you're not stopping.
No, you're not. You're going to lose all your braking efficiency with that one line feeding all four wheels. What we've actually done here, we've taken that away. We've installed a much more up-to-date power brake booster with a dual master cylinder. And should you have the misfortune of losing a wheel cylinder or a hose or a line, you would still have some braking effect to limp yourself in to get rescued and repair your problem. What we've done there is removed that, installed that. It has its own pre-bent lines that are pre-bent for this particular application. And but right now, all we need to do is finish and tightening up the master cylinder and those lines.
Let's bring them up to speed of where we actually went. What happened here? We removed that.
We actually, when we installed this booster, we also attached a proportioning valve. And this proportioning valve equalizes the pressure between front and rear.
Right.
It also allows you to feed both front wheels independently from each other.
Right.
Which again is a good feature.
That's a huge feature.
A limp in problem.
And you get the proportion valve built in with this combination valve. So you have an option here to actually run a red brake warning light here.
You sure can.
And metering if you want to hold off the front. Now really cool is what you said, the lines. Now when we start putting these lines in, we had to route this one actually under the car and come up to the master cylinder to go the other side.
Right.
Now Herman, I've been to the parts store, man. I got a roll of lines and tried to flare it. It's not a pretty thing.
No, it isn't. These lines are CNC bent for this particular application. Some slight tweaking might have to take place in the installation procedure, but very little, if any.
And then we come up to that, so you even got the lines going here. And we split the system up now. We went to the fronts, which is really unique individually. So you got a front line going to the right front and one going to the left front?
Correct.
And then you went ahead and teed into the rear, so we still have the rears.
Right, the rear all still feeding off of one line.
Now why did we add a power booster? I mean, we'd have to, or?
You can go with a manual, but you're basically in today's technology with that. Very, very light pressure on the pedal, and you have an immense amount of hydraulic pressure.
When we come back with more Motorhead Garage, we're going to get down there. We're going to actually get to the meat and potatoes of this thing and take those drums off and put the disc conversion on. Welcome back to Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting. Well, let me get you up to speed. We actually did the other side, and H&H Classic Parts couldn't have made it any easier. Everything came in the kit. I mean, my caliper, my rotor, my lines, the brackets, the bolts, everything was in there. It was quite simple. We're going to show you how this side goes together. But before we do that, if that single channel master cylinder wasn't enough reason to change it, this is right here, because you actually have a drum brake system we took off, and in the drum you can see inside of here, I mean, that's just not going to do very good stopping, and it's going to capsulate a lot of heat. Wheel cylinder doesn't give you much pressure. What are we going to do, Herman? We're actually going to put this actual ventilated rotor on, which is going to dissipate the heat. We got a lot more stopping power with a floating caliper on there. This is going to be great. Tell us where we are in our install right here.
John, right now what we're doing is we're installing the caliper bracket. We're utilizing the existing original spindle. We put the rotor on bearings on there earlier and mocked them up because we had to re-drill the cotter pin hole.
Now this is super important. I mean, we mocked it up without grease. That's
right.
I've done that before.
You bet. Mock them up without grease. That way you're not getting filings in the grease. But that hole moves out about 1/8 of an inch.
And that's for the cotter key. That's going to hold everything on when we're done.
That's for the cotter key to hold your castellated nut. We've got the lower bolts into the original steering knuckle arm. We have a special machined bolt here. If you notice, that's a thin head on there. It has to be machined down especially so it will clear the backside of the rotor.
And these are already tight, so you can go ahead and snug up this
we're
now.
going to snug this up right now.
Now this is really the heart of the system, this whole caliper bracking, and it's really nice because we're utilizing the actual spindle here from the car. I mean, that's nice. You don't have to change everything. Now it's time for the rotor. And what's really nice about the rotor, you can see it right here, the actual rotor. Put the bearing in already, put the seal on there. Now you guys provide that as well?
We sure do. It all comes in the kit. The bearing, seal, washer, nut, cotter pin.
And this is a real common rotor. I mean, let's go ahead and slip it on there at the same time. I mean, that's nice. So I can go to a parts store and get this rotor no matter where it comes from.
That's right. These are all A-body, A and G-body components.
Easy to replace. Got a lot of meat on it. And you got a lot of room for pad and wear. I mean, this is awesome. It's ventilated. It's going to dissipate the heat, which is really great. And there goes your castellated nut. That was important for drilling that hole, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. We need to get a little bit of a torque on that right quick.
Now I got the caliper assembly, and this is real nice because this is a G-body caliper, Herman. We can get this thing anywhere. And what's really nice, it's a floating caliper, man. It comes with the pins. You set the line. We put the line on already. It comes with the pads, totally loaded, lubricated. The slides are lubricated. This thing's going to work great.
You bet.
Want to explain the installation?
Sure enough. Here, we're going to slide this over our bracket that we've already previously installed onto our original spindle.
All right, get the pads lined up in there. Just be patient when you're doing this. You'll feel it. It'll get right in there. If you have to push your piston back a little bit, so be it. You push your piston back. That's nice. The pins go right in. They're going to thread into the back of the bracket, which is real nice. That already came threaded. That was the integral piece of the whole system there, and that's what's going to hold the caliper in place. All right.
You bet.
Get the socket there and tighten it up.
On that.
Now you always want to start these by hand. You want to manipulate the caliper to get it in the right place. Don't just start cranking on these things. So you get them set up in there by hand, or you could cross thread them and do some damage. What's next after this, Herman?
Well, we need to get our hose through the bracket up there and get our metal line tied into that.
Now you guys sell a lot more than just calipers with H&H Classic Parts.
You know, we do a lot more than just brakes. We have about all of your accessories, from rubber to emblems to little fastener kits to stainless moldings, aluminum moldings for various applications.
Now once we get this thing tightened up, it's real important that you go back. We're going to have to bleed the brakes, aren't we?
You bet. We're going to have to bleed the brake. We're going to start at the wheel that would be the furthest away from the source.
Right.
In this car here, in this particular case, the left rear wheel would be the farthest away because your brake lines come out across to the right side, down the right-hand side, and then across to the left side on the rear end.
Okay.
So you would normally maybe start on the right rear. With this one here, the way it's made, we're going to start on the left rear wheel and bleed the brake.
Perfect. I'll tell you what, why don't you go ahead and get that button back up. We got the other side on, but you know, we're all greasy. So what we'll do, we'll put the lug nuts on when we finish up. We want to go ahead and use this nut job to polish up the lug nuts real nice so we don't get grease on them. And you know what else, Herman? I heard that you like barbecue. So here's what we're going to do. All right? We're going to take this thing on a test drive. We're going to go down to a barbecue joint. We're going to take an extended lunch. We'll let Brian and Trey clean up the rest of this stuff. You stick around. We got plenty more Motorhead Garage when we return.